Meanwhile, Kangana Ranaut is also under fire for her upcoming movie Emergency. She said that there are double standards when it comes to films or series made by so-called leftists and Deshbhakts. Her own film Emergency, which was to release this weekend, has been stalled despite the fact that she's a BJP MP. Kangana Ranaut says Emergency is yet to receive a censor board certification. Sikh outfits are up in arms. They want Kangana's film banned. Why? Watch this report.
Kangana Ranaut's starrer Emergency, that was expected to hit the theatres this week, has run into trouble. This film is yet to get approval from the Central Board of Film Certification. The actor also took to social media platform X to lash out, comparing her film's release being blocked to the controversy surrounding Netflix series IC814, The Kandahar Hijack. The actor said, while there is a freedom for leftists for anti-national expressions, nationalists are not allowed to make films that revolve around the integrity and unity of Bharat. Sikh organizations in Punjab, Telangana, New Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and other states are demanding a ban on Emergency. Sikh bodies allege that the film has misrepresented the community and that it will promote hatred. The charge is that the film claims that Khalistani terrorist Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale has demanded the creation of a separate homeland and that the excesses of Indira Gandhi have not been appropriately shown.
हमारा दलील के ऊपर है, हमारा कोई हिस्ट्री बिगाड़ी जा रही है और सिख करैक्टर है जो उसका जो हनन किया उसका हनन एक हिसाब से किया जा रहा है, तो उसके खिलाफ हमने जो एक्चुअल बात थी वो बताई थी और उसके बाद में श्रोमणी गुरुद्वारा प्रबंधक कमेटी ने उनको नोटिस भी जारी किया, कानूनी नोटिस जारी किया और कुछ लोगों ने हाई कोर्ट में भी जाके इसके खिलाफ अपनी रिट पिटीशन डाली है.
Politicians in Punjab have also hit out at Kangana Ranaut and her film.
ये ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਬਜਾਏ ਵੰਡੀਆਂ ਪਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਝੂਠੇ ਬੇਬੁਨਿਆਦ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇਹਦੀ ਨਖਿਦੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਏ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਘੱਟ ਹੈ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਦੂਜੀ ਬੀਬੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੁੱਖ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ. ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਭਾਜਪਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਇਹਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਤਾ ਹੈ? ਇਕੱਲੇ ਚਿੱਠੀ ਲਿਖਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫਟਕਾਰ ਕੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਲਓ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕੱਢੋ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਸਪੈਂਡ ਕਰੋ.
ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਐਸਜੀਪੀਸੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਦਿਖਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨਗੀ ਲਈ ਜਾਵੇ. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੰਗਣਾ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਕੰਗਣਾ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸੀਰੀਅਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ.
ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਨੂੰ ਠੇਸ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਇਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਨ ਹੋਏ, ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਠੇਸ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੀਨ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਇਹ ਤੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੈਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਊਗਾ.
Sources in the Modi government say that sensitive content in the film is being taken seriously and that religious sentiments cannot be hurt. Bureau Report, India Today.
This debate has so many different shades and I hope to build on all of those. As I introduce you to our panelists for this broadcast, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, writer and commentator, Advaita Akala is a screenwriter and author, Sanjay Jha is author and commentator, Saira Shah Halim is a political activist and Meghna Pant is an author. I want to start by Abhijit Iyer Mitra and I'll stay for a moment on the IC814 Netflix series and then we'll come to what's happening with Kangana's Emergency. Now Abhijit, you have taken the position that IC814 is left-wing anti-India propaganda. I want you to explain that to our viewers because the counter to that would be that this is based on true events. The fact is the terrorists did, despite the intel warnings that we have, managed to hijack IC814. They did take it to Kandahar. This was a massive embarrassment and therefore the underlying suggestion is that this BJP government and its ecosystem is upset because it showed what happened under the Vajpayee government. So why are you so angry about IC814? Explain that and then we'll build on it.
Thank you, Rahul. I'm not angry. It's just that I have a whole load of contempt for Bollywood and Bollywoodias in general. So they're too low grade to get me angry. But let's talk about the facts of the movie. Like you said, based on real events. So, you know, in the very first scenes, they've changed the foreign minister, who was Jaswant Singh, to somebody called Vijay Singh or Vijay Bhan Singh, or I don't know what it is. So they've taken a considerable amount of artistic license there. Throughout it, in trying to humanize the terrorists and the hijackers, they've taken a considerable amount of artistic license. Fine. Now, Shankar and Bhola are actually the names the hijackers took, because if you remember, within the first few hours of the hijacking, the then Pakistan information minister, was it the information minister or foreign minister, I forget, had come out and said that one of the hijackers is a Kashmiri Hindu. Right? They've been playing this game for a very long time, which is why Ajmal Kasab also was wearing the kaleba when he came, because they wanted to portray this as a Hindu terror attack or whatever it was. Now, for the director to take artistic license with everything else, but use the Shankar and Bhola, which was the ISI propaganda line, is a bit rich, right? Number one. Number two, what he's gone and done is, if you just follow, and he's done this with an agenda. Why do you know it? See, the action by itself could be fairly innocent. The problem is, if you go on Twitter and see who all he follows, he keeps following all the people who keep putting forward these conspiracy theories of Hindu terror, Saema, Rana Ayub, etc., fiction writers, failed poets, so on and so forth. So it's intent plus the act of commission out here. And like I said, I don't take these clowns of Bollywood very seriously.
Okay, so you're basically making the point, and a lot of people have said that IC814 should be banned because it shows these two call signs. It shows these two call signs of these terrorists using Hindu names, which from the book, it's also based on the pilot's book. And from what we gather from the book, those are the call signs they use. So he can say, this is actually representing what's been written by the pilot of IC814 in his book.
Yes, but the pilot doesn't humanize the terrorists. The pilot also doesn't say the foreign minister was some Vijay Bhan Singh.
But isn't it better not to show the name of the real foreign minister, because then it's no longer a film, right? Okay, let me go across to Saira Shah Halim and bring her in as well. Now, here is someone who many on the right seem to think is clearly a left-leaning filmmaker, and everyone's entitled to his politics, so that's fine. The second charge is that it's humanizing the terrorists, making them seem like they were good human beings. The terrorists and the passengers ultimately end up playing Antakshari, so that this isn't shown to be the travesty that it actually was, and the fact that this is one of the biggest slip-ups in national security intelligence, that this somehow seems to have had a great human bonding and element to it, which is what many people seem to be objecting to, Sarah.
So firstly, good evening, Rahul. I watched the entire series last night, and I can well, say that nowhere is it glorifying terrorism, or nowhere does it celebrate or show kind of bonhomie with the protagonist and the terrorist or anything like that. I can understand, like jobless trolls from the IT cell who troll and peddle hatred, on X and social media. But now, it's like the ministry is engaging in such frivolity, which is really, really appalling. Now, I want to ask Abhijit one question. Firstly, this incident happened during the BJP regime. Now, the question arises is, who permitted IC814 to take off from Amritsar and land in Kandahar? Certainly not Anubhav Sinha. Who escorted Masood Azhar, Umar Sheikh, Mustaq, Zargar, and also alleged cash into the arms of the Taliban, helping to create the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which further led to a parliament attack in 2001. Definitely not Anubhav Sinha. So the main question is, this entire incident happened during the BJP regime. Let's not try and deflect the issue.
Okay, Advaita Kala, the counter charge is very simple. That the government...
Let me come back.
Okay, very quick. Because respond to the counter charge that this is a massive security failure. It happened at a time when a lot of people who are currently also in this administration had important roles to play, and everybody's very touchy because this mess happened on their watch, which is why they're looking for some reason or the other to agitate against it.
On point one, please note, I haven't raised the question of the compound failures of both intelligence and leadership that happened under the Vajpayee government and the intelligence services. They need to be condemned. They need to be eviscerated and done so very, very strongly, number one. Okay, I was talking about the way propaganda has been, Pakistani propaganda has been further propagated in this movie. As for point number two, yes, it wasn't Anubhav Sinha, but please read Kanchan Gupta's post. It was your party leader, Miss Brinda Karat, who was going on saying Masood Azhar is very innocent, he's a very secular boy, he's so sweet, whatnot, who was sitting with all the relatives outside the Prime Minister's house, then whipping them into a frenzy and getting them to go about beating cops and demand the
Point
release
is,
of all
the
those
BJP
people.
released
That
3
was your
terrorists,
leader.
and those
Please go
same
ask her
terrorists
why
attacked
does your leader
Mumbai.
support
Let's
terrorism
not
on one
forget
Okay,
that.
hand?
I can't
and
have
then
both
come
guests
around
just
speaking
asking
over
me
each
to
other.
the
jail
I've
of
given
life?
both of you an opportunity to make your opening comments. I want to throw it open to the others. Advaita Khala, now, you're a filmmaker, you're an author, you've been involved with films and projects and productions yourself. The thing is, it is made from somebody's point of view. Like Emergency is made from Kangana Ranaut's point of view. She's a BJP MP, she has a right-wing perspective, and naturally those who aren't from that point of view will maybe not like Emergency. The thing is, where do you draw the line? Now, if there are some people who are offended with IC814, is it appropriate for the Information and Broadcasting Ministry to call in the Netflix head honcho and say, explain what's happening in this film? It's somebody's perspective, which is the case with all cinema.
Right, and that should be the case ideally. And I don't. My default setting obviously is free speech and all of those things that go with it, because it's a question of livelihood for someone like me. However, I think when you are speaking of true events, especially events that have scarred the nation's psyche, it could be 9/11 in the... Now, if you're going to speak about the bumbling bureaucracy and the polity of that time, no problem. Please go ahead and represent them if that's who they really were. And it was a colossal failure. And if that has been entered in the seas of the filming. But if you're going to then extend this largesse or this Che Guevara treatment to terrorists who were out there for a very specific purpose, who had a very specific agenda, if you're going to humanize them, if you're going to have a character say this person is hot, if you're going to give the ISI a clean chit, people are going to have a problem with it. And just saying that, oh, these were the call signs which were Hindu names, sure, and use that is factually correct. That is what they used. But have you at any point indicated that these were aliases? That these were not actually their real names?
Surely you know that.
Did you
Once again, because in the beginning it's quite clear that they are Muslim by religion and these are Islamic terrorists. Surely he doesn't need to put a disclaimer that this Bhola is not his real name. I mean, who makes a film like that?
No, it isn't.
No, Rahul, you can do it in 2 ways. You can put a disclaimer at the end of the series, or you can even write it into the script where you have a moment of oversight and the two refer to each other by their real names and then clam up. I mean, there are a lot of creative remedies.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, Advaita Khala says they should have put a disclaimer that Bhola and Shankar are aliases, call signs, nicknames. These are not their real names. That somehow the filmmaker seems to have a left-leaning bias. He seems to follow, as Abhijit Iyer says, people who have taken strident anti-government positions, and this is basically putting out a left-leaning point of view, and therefore the right-wing...
Rahul, anti-Hindu.
Okay, anti-Hindu, and therefore...
And they say Hindu terror, Hindu genocidaires and whatnot. And they're the biggest supporters of Hamas and every Islamic terrorist group on earth, people like Saima and Rana Ayyub.
And therefore it is bona fide, they argue, for the Information and Broadcasting Ministry to call the Netflix head honcho and get them to explain what's going on in IC814. Sanjay Jha.
Rahul, just give me a minute and I will debunk why the right wing today appears so rattled. The entire ecosystem of Mr. Modi's government, for whom the obsession is national security, today stands exposed. Let me expose Mr. Mitra right away on your program. Number one, does he even know that India's Home Minister, L.K. Advani, who was in charge of security, said that he had no idea. He had no idea that Jaswant Singh was traveling with terrorists on a plane to release them in Kandahar. I think the reason why the right wing today appears to be extremely paranoid, disturbed, and probably over the top is because their entire obsession of this muscular nationalism has been torn to shreds and exposed based on history. What is the second reality, Rahul? I'm not indulging in the rhetoric that Mr. Mitra did. I'm going to give you a second fact. The raw chief, former raw chief, A.S. Dulat, went on record to tell that the government goofed up. There are his words, saying no decisions were taken and it was a colossal failure. Point number three, the plane was for 45 minutes in Lahore But Mr. Vajpayee's government
No, it
was
wasn't in Lahore, it was in Amritsar. You got your facts wrong there.
No, but in Amritsar for
Rahul,
45
I just want
minutes,
to repeat,
and the
I
Punjab
started off
police,
saying
just not
this was a
interrupt me,
monumental
please.
government failure.
Please do not
He's
interrupt
just
me.
repeating it, he's
Please
not
do not
answering your
interrupt me.
question, and he's
Rahul, this is
diverting.
not a fair
Abhijit Iyer,
debate
let
for
him
allowing
speak.
you
Let
to
him
interrupt
speak.
me.
I'll come back to you in just a moment. Sanjay Jha, complete your argument. It was Amritsar, not Lahore, but go on.
So I'm making that correction. It was in
Go on.
had the wherewithal to stop the plane from taking off, but Mr. Vajpayee's government was sleeping. These are three hard realities nobody from the BJP can contradict. Point number 4, the reason why they're worried is because the people of India are watching the truth on a party that has fooled the country on their national security hype. Everybody knows that even in Kargil, there was a shepherd by the name of Tashi Namgayal who alerted the Indian army. That was the intelligence failure of the BJP. I mean, these are the truths that people need to know.
Okay.
I think people need to know about the Gujarat files. They need to know about the Manipur files. They need to know about the Muzaffarnagar files. They need to know about the Rafael files. They need to know about the Adani files. They need to know about the Delhi riot. Them be out in the open. Respect the verdict of the audience. Stop clamping on freedom.
You know, it's all happening, Meghna Pant, at the same time. If it was just outrage against IC814, it would be one thing. But Kangana Ranaut is crying and she's upset as well, saying that my certification has been put off.
Right.
The fact is that what happened during the emergency and the anti-Sikh riots was terrible. My own family went through some of it, so many people who we knew growing up also suffered, and therefore what happened was really, really brutal and terrible. Yet the certification has been held off. Now, is this all linked to politics? You think that everybody is basically looking at it from their political lens? What they see in the front screen which they like, they say, this is good. Whatever they see they don't like, they say, hatao isko.
I think, Rahul, I want to bring a little bit of, this political mudslinging and it'll go on and on, all the social media posturing. I think at the heart of the matter, let's discuss that. I don't think anybody's getting to that. The tussle between the art and the censor is centuries old and it's going to continue, for aeons ahead. I'm coming to you as an artist who is living in an environment where there's so much fear, there's so much self-censorship that's going on. And I'm someone who believes in freedom of expression, but I also cannot ignore the fact that freedom of expression now comes with responsible freedom of expression. And the heart of this debate, the heart of the matter, which everybody needs to understand is what is the intent. A terrorist and a surgeon both murder, but we distinguish one as a murderer and the other as a savior because of one thing and one thing only, what is the intent. And I'm on the side of the makers here. Anubhav Sinha is a responsible filmmaker. Netflix is a responsible streaming platform. I don't think the intent here was to be malicious or to be provocative. That said, we also have to understand that what needs to change is the law of the land. Why is the onus coming on artists or creative platforms? The law of the land. Because we live in a democracy and we have not faced something like this for such a long, this tussle for such a long time, let there be a universal law that cuts across all medium, that defines very narrowly and very strictly what are the contours of free speech, what are the contours of creative freedom. Let artists and creators such as myself understand this so we know what is right and what is wrong. Here it's all so muddled, it's so confusing. We are all living in fear of being cancelled or being incarcerated. So the law of the land has to be on the side.
But Adwaita, you said in your opening comments that the air hostess calls one of the terrorists cute. The thing is that this is when the passengers are just walking in and the air hostess at that time doesn't know he's a terrorist, and therefore when these two ladies are talking, they say, oh, he's cute. Which seems like a perfectly normal kind of banter or conversation between these two air hostesses. Why object to something like that? I mean, you're a filmmaker yourself, you're an author, how will anybody make any film if some Advaita Kala stands up and says, they were terrorists, why is the air hostess calling the terrorist cute? Hey, at that moment she didn't know he was a terrorist.
No, I don't think it's necessarily, I think there's differences, Rahul, there's a difference. There's treatment, there's the actual story, there's the actual script arc. There are various layers to this, as well as the disclaimers that come with it being an actual project that is based on truth and facts, allegedly. So we can get all of these muddled. The bottom line is that if you compare the treatment along with the lens through which it has been viewed the
No,
way
but
the
let me then flip it around and ask you about the emergency. Which lens is
Yeah.
emergency made from? Should Kangana Ranaut get a certificate from the censor board or not?
Well, see, now here's the difference, right? Because the OTT platforms do not go through any form of censor. They are supposed to self-regulate when it comes to content. However, a film in India does go through the censor board and does go through the process. So if Kangana Ranaut, irrespective of being a BJP MP, is going through the process, facing the kind of cuts that she needs to face, I think she's well within her right to appeal it. And I think the censor board is within its right to tell her. However, with the OTT platforms, it's a free ride. Be it sex, be it nudity, be it communal themes, be it taking liberty with history, be it any of those things, the OTTs are answerable to no one. So let them at least be answerable to some Advaita Kala and the audience in general, Rahul. Why are you batting for them?
No, I'm not batting for anyone. I don't bat for anyone. My job is to play
no,
the
because you
role of
said
the devil's
some Advaita
advocate and to
Kala will
ask
stand up,
questions. No, but
some
here's the
Advaita
thing.
Kala
No,
is the
Abhijit
audience.
Iyer Mitra, should Kangana Ranaut's emergency get the censor certificate or not? The BJP MP seems quite upset. I mean, which lens is she making this film from? Surely it can be nobody's case that she's a non-partisan, unattached observer of events and that's how she's making the film. That's clearly not the case.
So who said she's unattached? She's a BJP MP. My point is there should be no censorship in India. I fall on the other side. Neither should this IC814 be banned, nor should Kangana's film have any kind of cuts in it. I'm very clear about this. I'm very open about this. But let's just address two quick points that the previous participants, I don't know the lady's name. She said Netflix is a professional company. Last year, they lost $18 billion in value. The previous Netflix chief was notorious for giving contracts for movies and things like that to her cronies and produced flop show after flop show after flop show, one after the other. She was also, her entire cabal used to be very close to a certain event manager who's caught up in the entire Delhi liquor scam. And you know exactly where that was going. Number one. Number two, you know, see, Sanjay Jha, what did I start off with? I said, please eviscerate the Vajpayee government. But the problem with Sanjay is he can't listen. You see, either he has his English comprehension issues or he has premature onset of deafness. So I don't know which one it is. Thank you.
Now, Sanjay Jha, you know, the fact is that the Congress is opposing the emergency. Now, suddenly, many in the left ecosystem very strongly for IC814. What happened during the emergency was brutal. It was completely unacceptable. There were excesses at every turn. Kangana Ranaut captures some of that in her film, and yet many in the Congress ecosystem want the film banned. I heard what Channi said. He said, no, we don't want this to come in Punjab. Your Chief Minister in Telangana, Revant Reddy, is saying the same. He doesn't want it in Telangana. So now, how do you have these differential standards?
You know, Rahul, before I answer your question, having been part of several debates, whenever an opponent of my viewpoint indulges in cheap homonym comments, I know they have lost the debate, but I'm not going to lower the debate today. It is very interesting that the gentleman on your program sounding so sanctimonious, where was he when the Kashmir Files was a blockbuster? Where was he when the Kerala story was being quoted by the Prime Minister himself? In fact, Mr. Modi supported two films and many people trashed as being nothing but a figment of somebody's wild imagination, a fabrication promoted by the Prime Minister of India. For God's sake.
Are you saying the Kashmir Files is not based on true events?
Well, let me tell you, there was a lot of stuff
According
there,
to him, the Kashmiri Pandit genocide never happened.
Sanjay Jha, you watch what you say. Surely you're not saying that there was no genocide and that Kashmiri Pandits were not targeted. That's not appropriate.
Well, I'm making a different point. There was a lot of fabrication and people went and pointed that out. But let me make a bigger point here. Let me make a bigger point here now. Don't try and erase the debate.
Okay, Abhijit Iyer, let him complete. Abhijit, let him complete.
Let me make the bigger point here. The bigger point is very simple. The reason why the right-wing ecosystem is rattled is because
you aren't answering my question. I dealt with IC814 first. I'm asking about the emergency and why so many in the Congress want emergency banned.
Well, I'm answering you on that. On the emergency, I can see that a lot of the farmers are protesting because we have heard the leading actor of this film making extremely shall we say, contemptuous remarks, highly, deplorable, for which I think her own party has castigated her to take back those statements. You can imagine how the farmers feel, or the Punjabis or the Sikhs feel.
No, but why ban the film?
In the film?
Why ban the film? Why say we won't show it in Telangana or Punjab? That's what Revant Reddy is saying. That's what Channi is saying.
I am not supporting the ban of the film at all. In fact, I think the emergency should be released, as should the Gujarat 2002 riots, as should be the emergency over the 2014 to 24, as should be the Adani files, as should be the Rafael files. Absolutely. Okay. I think we need to be a lot more of a mature democracy.
Now, Saira Shah Halim, suddenly the perspective changes. Those who are, very rah-rah about IC814 say, but emergency can cause problems. There could be a Sikh backlash, that the Sikhs are feeling that they've been victimized and shown in bad light, and therefore there's a pushback. I mean, every film is made from some lens or the other, and that's the prerogative of the filmmaker.
Okay, so Rahul, firstly, the irony is that people who look at films like Kashmir Files as the gospel truth are having a major, meltdown, because suddenly they're looking for accuracy, they want nuances.
But you aren't answering my question, Saira Shah Halim. Should emergency come out as is? Do you think Kangana Ranaut is correct when she says the censors are giving her a rough time for no reason?
I am absolutely against censorship, on the OTT platform. I think there has to be creative liberty. And whatever side of the fence you're on, I think that way I agree with Abhijit. I am absolutely, in support of, creative liberty and freedom of expression, as far as, because it's an artist's perception about a certain incident. We might differ on how certain events in history unfold. But, history cannot be played around with completely. Yeah, they can be, turning, of the truth. But you can't totally, evade the truth or totally cancel the truth. And BJP, is an expert in doing away with the truth. Like removing chapters of history, like the Mughal Empire, they just feel that, the medieval history did not exist. So I do not believe in that. You cannot delude yourself into believing that India existed without the medieval history, without Akbar, without the medieval history. There has to be an element of truth.
But the problem, Meghna Pant, is, while I've seen IC814, I've only seen the trailer for the emergency. You've got in that film Indira Gandhi saying apparently that India is Indira, Indira is India. That's not a factual representation. That's D.K. Barua who actually coined the saying that India is Indira and Indira is India. This is around 1977. So a lot of it is made, and while we had Kangana Ranaut in our studios and she said this is a lot of academic research, a lot of it is just political narratives being peddled during the film, which she's entitled to. But it's not purely non-partisan research. There's a lot of political ideologies that are being pushed through.
Yeah, and Rahul, what I'm not understanding is why aren't we taking preemptive measures if we are so easily offended, if we are so easily hurt, if our sensibilities are so frail? Art cannot be decoded. Every person experiences art in a different fashion. So you can't tell people how to experience a film or experience a book or experience a piece of art. So the law of the land has to change, and I'm saying this again and again. The onus is not on the portal, the onus is not on the creator, the onus is on setting clear guidelines and rules that what are the contours of free speech and creative freedom, and within that, then the responsible freedom of expression that I spoke of earlier comes on the artist, then the onus comes on the creator. But you cannot say that, okay, we're going to be offended by everything.
If everybody starts defining what's okay by them and what's not okay by them,
how do we know what is right?
Maybe at the end of it, all we can do is make bhajans, right? You can't do anything else. Somebody or the other will get offended.
Art is supposed to be disruptive. Art is supposed to push the envelope. Otherwise, we live in a provincial town and a country such as ours with such a rich history of storytelling. Why should we lose that? Because we're so living in fear
Advaita,
all the time.
here's the thing. If there hadn't been this outrage against IC814, maybe fewer people would have watched it, much fewer people would have watched it. And even with emergency, the fact that there is now so much curiosity and buzz, and we saw that in the case of Padmavat back a few years ago, the moment there is buzz and chatter, then they say, laga ke dekho ye hai kya? You know, otherwise people may have just series come, series go, very few people watch. I mean, whatever number of people watch, but suddenly when there's so much buzz and amplification, then everybody wants to watch.
Sure, absolutely. It's a crowded marketplace. So there's no such thing as bad publicity in showbiz, if I was to be completely cynical about it. And I certainly wouldn't be weeping any tears if anything of mine was attracting this kind of attention, even if it is negative, and I'm sure no one really is, ostensibly or at least isn't. But I think the important thing here is that with each creative work must be judged on its own merit and not plugged with each other. And on the other hand, also, I think when it comes to true life incidents, you know, if you were to relook at Gandhi now, which was made in the 80s and won all those awards, if you view it today, you'll find a lot of things that are very problematic with that film as well, which is known to be a classic. So art also is viewed differently as the audience changes. Now, the audience in 2024, which is far more aware of terror as opposed to what was happening back in 1999 and has experienced terror in various forms across the globe, is going to respond and have a certain hypersensitivity to terror, which did not necessarily exist earlier. And that's the reason why, to a certain extent, you're seeing this response, because it's abhorrent. Terrorists cannot be humanized in any form. There has to be complete.
No, but it's also a lot about, you know, what lens you see it from. Lots of people of a different political ideology will see IC814 and say, we saw the whole thing, but where were they humanizing the terrorists? A lot of people have come out and said the same thing as well. Okay.
9/11 happened. Do you see a humanization of the terrorists? You don't.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, on the charge of humanizing the terrorists. Final words and then I'm out of time.
Well, let me tell you, I have seen a couple of episodes. I think the director has tried to put it across in a dispassionate way. I think the right wing calling it a leftist propaganda is a massive joke. Anybody who criticizes the government is anyway called an urban naxal, right? Why is Mr. Modi's government so thin-skinned? Because at the moment, and I'll keep repeating that point, Rahul, try and understand why the government and the right wing are trolling Anubhav Sinha. Because it makes the Vajpayee government look absolutely incompetent, like a bunch of duffers. The Home Minister did not know that Jaswant Singh was going with the terrorists. It's written that in his autobiography, for heaven's sake. I mean, do you need further evidence of how badly Kandahar was basically bungled, the hijack? So it's basically an attempt to try and deflect attention from a monumental and a mammoth failure. Kargil was one. I think there should be a movie made on Kargil as well.
Sure. The reality is that for 40 plus minutes, Indian Airlines' flight IC814 stood at the Amritsar airport. There were enough mechanics available for us to be able to, shoot at the wheels of the plane, to send the Punjab police commandos in. Enough and more could have been done. It is the failure of the Indian system where a decision couldn't be taken and the commandos were not sent in. Critical lens needs to be brought to that. Make no mistake about it. It's also correct that no terrorist needs to be shown in a fashion that people go back thinking, hey, he's not such a bad guy after all. That's not the right thing to do. The happiest at this moment, of course, would be the filmmakers, because suddenly so many more people are ending up watching IC814 than would have been the case otherwise. It would have just come and gone. A regular number of people would have seen it. Now everybody wants to see what the fuss is all about, and that's also the reality about showbiz. The fact is that there are no clear answers. Everybody has their point of view, and what you did during the last half hour is listen to different perspectives from different points of view, cutting across the political spectrum, and I leave it to you, our viewers, to decide who you think held for tonight and whose point of view you agree with. We've got information coming in that the former principal of RG Kar Medical College and Hospital, Sandeep Ghosh, has been arrested by the CBI. For more details on this, I'm joined by our Kolkata Bureau Chief, Indrajit Kundu. Indrajit, what are the charges that have been levelled by the CBI? This is the first arrest they've made since they began the investigation.
Well, that's right. Very, very crucial. Sandeep Ghosh, always on the radar. For 2 weeks, he has been grilled by the CBI, and there was anticipation that was building that finally there would be some, arrest that would be made by the central agency. In fact, pressure was mounting on the central agency. Even as we speak, there were doctors protesting on the streets of Kolkata. So finally, Sandeep Ghosh has been arrested by the Central Probe Agency. He has, of course, been arrested on a different case, not in connection to the rape and murder that has taken place at the Arjikar Hospital on 9th of August. He has, of course, been arrested in connection to the investigation into the financial irregularities that the Central Bureau of Investigation is also investigating. Remember, Rahul, there was an SIT that was formed by the West Bengal government to look into
what kind of financial irregularities, Indro?
Well, there are multiple allegations. There are allegations of misappropriation of government funds. There are allegations of mismanagement of, the dead bodies, serious allegations. So there are multiple allegations that have surfaced over the past several weeks, especially by whistleblowers who have also come on our network and spoken about them. The government had taken note and formed an SIT. However, the Kolkata High Court later on had transferred the case to the CBI, saying that given that the CBI is probing the rape and murder case, the single agency should also be probing the financial irregularities. The CBI, of course, in their investigation of the past 14 days, haven't been able to gather concrete evidence to arrest Sandeep Ghosh, is what we are learning from our sources. But it was imminent that there is some evidence as far as the financial impropriety is concerned.
Okay,
and
Indrajit Kundu, will come back to you for more later. Thank you for joining us with that update. The Supreme Court had some tough words for the practice of demolishing houses or properties of those who are accused of crimes, and said it would issue guidelines to tackle such cases of bulldozer justice. A bench of Justices B.R. Gawai and K. Vishwanathan said that such demolition cannot be allowed only because a person is accused of a criminal offence. Our Law Today team with this report.
An illegal multi-story complex allegedly belonging to rape-accused Samajwadi Party Neta in Ayodhya being razed to the ground a couple of weeks ago. On Monday, the Supreme Court, hearing a bunch of pleas against this so-called bulldozer justice, said that it will issue pan-India guidelines. A bench of Justices B.R. Gawai and K.V. Vishwanath observed that a house cannot be demolished even if the person has been convicted. Justice K.V. Vishwanath said that nobody should take advantage of lacunas, that a father may have a recalcitrant son, but if house is demolished on this ground, this is not the way to go about it. The court said that such demolition can happen only if the structure is illegal. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, who was appearing for the centre and BJP rule state, said that bulldozer action is taken only if there are municipal law violations. To which the Supreme Court responded that looking at the complainants, the top court felt that there was a breach.
अगर कोई मकान, दुकान या कोई निर्माण कार्य किसी अवैध स्थान पर है, अतिक्रमण करके बनाया गया है, नियमों का उल्लंघन करके बनाया गया है, तो निश्चित तौर पर उस अतिक्रमण को गिराया जाएगा। बुलडोजर की ये कार्रवाई विधि की परिधि के दायरे में हुई है।
आज सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने जो तीखी टिप्पणी बुलडोजर के मामले में करी है, ये दिखाता है कि ये किस तरह से गैर संवैधानिक, गैर कानूनी तरीके से भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार काम कर रही थी और चुन कर मुसलमानों को, ब्राह्मण्स को निशाना बना रही थी। हम आशा करते हैं सर्वोच्च न्यायालय से कि जो इस पे गाइडलाइन आएगी, इस तरह के किसी भी कार्रवाई पर इमीडिएट रोक लगे।
Over the past few years, several state governments have demolished houses and properties belonging to those involved in serious crimes. The Supreme Court posted the matter for hearing on September 17th. With Kanu Sharda in New Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
A 2-year-old girl has been killed and 3 others injured as wolves continue to terrorize Uttar Pradesh's Bhareich. The latest attacks took place despite officials from the Forest Department patrolling the area. The hunt is on for 2 wolves that are still on the loose.
पैर से विकलांग है कि सही 2 हैं इधर की तरफ 2 आए हैं
देखा है बहुत करीब से देखा
Man-eater wolves continue to unleash terror in Uttar Pradesh.
A 3-year-old child was killed in a wolf attack on Monday while a woman sustained injuries in wolf-infested Outrage. The toddler was killed in forested Hardi area while she was sleeping outside her house with her mother. A wolf snatched the child by grabbing her by the neck.
You can clearly see a lot of villagers present here as you see the visuals as they have assembled right here, encircled this particular house. So that could be the sense, what's the atmosphere inside this particular house where the scathing attack happened on a 3-year-old girl.
3 बताल में हमरे बच्ची को उठा लिया।
ये आता है तो आप जग रही होती, सो रही होती?
अब सो ही गए रहने वाले।
तो आप आवाज सुनती हैं बच्ची की?
आवाज ना आए, बच्ची की आवाज ना आए पावा।
बच्ची की आवाज नहीं आती?
बच्ची की आवाज ना आए पाए साहब, बच्ची की आवाज जा पाए हुई तो उठ पड़े। घाटी दाब दे समरे बच्ची की आवाज ना आए पावा।
In another attack, 70-year-old Kamla Devi was injured when a wolf entered her house and attacked her on Monday morning. She escaped with grievous injuries.
भेड़िया चबा लिया मेरी नट्टी।
आपने देखा था भेड़िए को?
बाहर का खींच लाया, एक पल्ला खुल गया, एक बंद रहा। जब भी मेरे को मंझी पर से बाहर खींच लाया, जब उसका मुंह ढीला हो गया, तब हम चिल्लाई पाई।
The wolf came and pushed inside, in a way opening one side of the door and entering inside the house. So that is another concern, that wolves know that they have to target the humans and leaving the animals who are pets as well. They are targeting just the humans.
In the last 50 days, this pack of wolf has killed at least 10, including 9 children. The horror has now spread to 35 villages of Outrage. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath meanwhile asked officials to redouble bid to catch the 2 remaining wolves from the pack of 6.
एक बड़ी संख्या हमने पकड़ ली गई, उनमें से करीबन 2 भेड़िया ऐसे हैं जो संभावित हैं कि जो हो सकते हैं। वो मैं उम्मीद कर सकता हूं कि वो अभी 1-2 दिन में ही हम पकड़ लेंगे। जो कैमरे शो कर रहे हैं और जो हमारा स्टाफ बता रहा है, वो यही संभावना है। हो सकता है वो 3 भी हो, पर ज्यादा संभावना 2 होने की है।
4 wolves have already been captured. The frequent attacks in the area prompted deployment of a large number of police personnel securing nearly 100 villages. With Samarth Srivastav in Outrage, Bureau Report, India Today.
Ironically, wolves typically tend to stay as far away from human beings as possible, very rarely tend to get into these kind of conflicts with humans. But that's what's happening right now in Outrage, and we've got reporters on the ground who are tracking this and will continue to do so over the next few days. This is where I wrap up the NewsTrack tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much.